What's up guys? Today I'm in Scotland presenting at a data festival up here in Aberdeen, talking about how Formula One of course uses data in pretty much every single thing that we do, including pit stops, including designing the car, including the human performance side as well as the technical, loads of areas where Formula One is pioneering the use of data. So we're talking about all of that today, but in this video I'm also going to be talking about what's going on down under in Australia and some of the potential protests that might be kicking off in the pit lane. So finished doing my talk at the Data Festival, which went really well. Really interesting event. I've done it a few years running actually, and it's interesting to hear how other industries use data in so many interesting ways. It really is a fascinating subject, and of course Formula One, you know, is very much at the forefront of that. We're using data in incredible senses now in so many different areas of what we do. It's one of the few events that's still been going ahead that I've been booked for, which is interesting in itself given the rate at which this whole thing is changing on an almost hour by hour basis. It still seems incredible to me that the Australian Grand Prix seems set to go ahead pretty much uninterrupted at this stage with just a couple of days to go. Lots of you, by the way, asking about this issue or this protest that Red Bull may have made on Mercedes rear brake ducts. And just to clarify, it's not a protest at this point, it's a query that Red Bull made to the FIA asking whether that kind of thing would be illegal or legal. And what it centres around is the dimensions that you're allowed around the rear brake duct area in the regulations to put ducting. Mercedes, as they had last year, have a little element above the brake duct allowable area which looks like a duct. Red Bull have questioned that. It was actually on the Mercedes last year and was questioned last year and deemed to be legal. The reason being, it's not a brake duct for cooling brakes. It's a duct that sends air through into the area around the brake duct to cool the rim and therefore the tyre, to manage tyre temperatures. And that's the same sort of thing they have on this year's car. This year though, the FIA have deemed that, or they have clarified that with a technical directive, essentially making that whole area, including the area that Mercedes have utilised for that extra duct, to be a limited area. Therefore, what Mercedes turned up in Australia with would now be deemed illegal if it was passed on to the stewards. That means they have to make changes, and lots of you asked, how do they do that? Can they make changes at such short notice? Yes, they can. They have a team of carbon experts on site that are able to, you know, literally cut and shut the ducts. They may well have already brought other ducts there with them, knowing that this could be a potentially contentious area. So it won't be anything that will hamper them too greatly. It just might put some kind of limit on their ability to manage tyre temperatures, rear tyre temperatures during the Grand Prix. Don't think it's going to be a huge deal though. The protests or potential protests centre around at the moment the Racing Point and Mercedes DAS system, that controllable toe angle on the steering. Now those things, if they are to be protested, will much more likely happen after the Grand Prix, because if you are a Red Bull, for example, and if in the Grand Prix you finish behind Mercedes, it would be in your interest to have them thrown out of the race because you would benefit by picking up further points. So they will typically wait until the race result has happened to see if it's a benefit to them before lodging a complaint or a protest like that. If they think they've got a decent argument, they can put that forward. And a number of you have said, but Mercedes have already been talking to the FIA, they've said it's legal. Well, Mercedes' opinion, the FIA's opinion is that that system would be legal in their eyes, but it's not them that makes a decision over a race weekend. That falls to the race stewards, who are a different body, who can make independent decisions, and if Red Bull think they've got enough information to convince the stewards that they now think it's illegal, that could well be the outcome. So that's that one. The other one centres around the Racing Point and potentially how Renault, under the similar circumstances, if they feel they can benefit from having Racing Point thrown out, might want to lodge a protest suggesting that it might have been impossible for Racing Point to have copied last year's Mercedes so accurately without some kind of help or assistance from Mercedes, and therefore would that call into question their ability to be called a manufacturer or a constructor in the world of Formula One. Interesting times. Don't know the answer to any of those things if they indeed went to protest, because nobody does. That would come down to an independent panel of stewards who would look at the evidence presented to them and then make a decision. And as we well know, that could roll on to counter protests, it could roll on to appeals and all sorts of things, which may well mean if the Australian Grand Prix does go ahead, we may not know the result come Sunday night. Right, off the back of all of that, I am now to get on the flight and go home. Right, back home in London, sunny, it's looking good. One thing I should just say, if the race happens, if the race result on Sunday means that, for example, Red Bull win and come ahead of Mercedes, fully expect for that protest just simply not to happen and for them to keep that in their back pocket until they really need it. So let's just finish this video by saying that these protests, if and when they materialise, are not always a kind of personal attack from one team against another team. I'm sure they can be at times, but that's not normally the motive behind them. As I've talked about, they can be strategic, and there will be teams, management teams, including lawyers and technical experts who will have already convened in Australia and will be probably convening right now to talk about the hows, the ifs, the whens, the whys of any protest that may happen. It could be that you might be looking for some kind of financial gain out of it in terms of points. Obviously it might be a strategic play in terms of your championship assault, but it can also be things like getting a technology, if you want to get it banned or getting it clarified by the FIA, because you as a team need to decide very quickly whether you need to follow suit and develop your own version. So take the DAS system, for example. If it proves to be a significant advantage on the racetrack for Mercedes if they use it this weekend, and other teams feel like they need that advantage as well, they need to have this clarified by the FIA. Do they commit time and energy and resources to trying to develop their own system, which could well be integrated into their own car because the advantage might be worth having? Or do they push the FIA to say, right, it's illegal, it can't happen, we're not going to allow it, and therefore it negates the need for any other team to commit any of those resources to developing their own. And it's quite interesting to note that on the subject of DAS, we might leave it here, but Red Bull, who are probably the team that are most likely to lodge an appeal in this instance, because of their kind of double bulkhead front end, they've shifted the steering rack back inside the normal bulkhead that it sits normally in front of the bulkhead. In the Red Bull it now sits behind, potentially could make that a bit more tricky to be able to achieve their own version of DAS if it was allowed to play out and it proved to be a significant advantage. So bear that in mind if and when any Red Bull protest comes. Right, thanks very much, folks. I'm going to go and crack on. I've got loads of work to do here, and I've just found out my wife, who works in London, her company have just shut down the office because of the coronavirus, only as a precaution, but they're shutting down the office, so she's working from home for the next week, which means it's lovely to have her around, but I've got to share my desk. So I need to go and make preparations for her moving into my desk space. Anyway, I'm hoping that I'll be back tomorrow with a preview to the Australian Grand Prix. It's going to be a weird start to the season, this, I think, for many reasons. But if this race happens this weekend, hopefully you'll have a full preview, including laps on the sim on the PlayStation to help describe exactly what the challenges that teams are facing right now ahead of this weekend. So for now, thank you very much, and I hope I'll see you very, very soon. Ta-da!